So apparently, things at Ferrari aren't all red suits and espresso shots. After the Monaco Grand Prix, our 7-time world champ Lewis Hamilton found himself talking to no one. Literally, he tried to reach his race engineer on team radio multiple times and in return got treated like a nobody and ghosted online. Now you'd think when you hire Lewis Hamilton, arguably one of the greatest drivers in the history of the sport, you'd at least have someone on the other end of the radio willing to say something back, but nope. Instead, Lewis was met with the kind of cold shoulder like he caused all of the Ferrari's downfall this season. Of course, fans noticed. Twitter went into meltdown. Reddit pulled out the popcorn, and the conspiracy theories came flying in faster than a Red Bull pit stop. Is Ferrari ignoring Lewis? Are they still mad about Imola? How can they embarrass the 7-time champ like that? Eventually, Fred Vasseur, Ferrari team boss and part-time damage control expert, decided to step in. He told the media that things between Ferrari and Lewis aren't good, but improving, which is basically PR speak for, we're not fighting, but we're definitely not hugging either. So what actually happened between Lewis and Ferrari after Monaco? Was it just a tech issue, or is there something deeper brewing inside the prancing horse's shiny red garage? Let's break it all down. So let's rewind a bit and start from the top of the Monaco weekend. Ferrari came in off the back of a miserable Imola Grand Prix at home, where they somehow got outpaced by a Williams. Lewis Hamilton has already been having some awkward tension with his race engineer Riccardo Adami since the season opener in Australia, and fans hoped the communication would finally improve here. Spoiler alert, it did not. In free practice, things looked decent. Ferrari seemed quick, Hamilton was fighting near the top of the timesheets, and overall, it looked like the SF25 might actually be alive this weekend. But then came the red flags. Metaphorically and literally, several times Lewis had to back off laps because his engineer didn't tell him there was traffic ahead. One of those moments nearly ended with him plowing into a slower car. In FP3, he smacked the wall at Casino Square. Not ideal. Not entirely his fault either, considering the situational awareness coming from the pit wall was basically non-existent. Then came qualifying. Lewis pushed hard and landed P4. Not bad, considering Monaco's chaos. But even there, Ferrari managed to fumble it. His engineer first told him Max Verstappen was on a flying lap behind, so Lewis should keep left. Then said Max was backing off, so he could go for it. Then told him to abort again because Max was apparently back on a push lap. It was a communication disaster in real time, and unsurprisingly, the stewards handed Lewis a 3-place grid penalty for blocking. Even Max himself said it wasn't Lewis' fault, but a penalty in Monaco is brutal. And just like that, a solid qualifying became another uphill Sunday. The race itself, bit of a blur, as Monaco races often are, but the key drama unfolded after the checkered flag. Lewis finished P5, decent result considering the mess, and as he crossed the line, he calmly asked the team if he did a good job. No reply. He asked again. Still nothing. It was just radio silence, and not in the funny, awkward way. This was the type of silence that genuinely felt cold, like he was being iced out live on air. This is Lewis Hamilton, 7-time world champion, asking for feedback like a rookie and getting ghosted by his own team. It wasn't just uncomfortable, it was actually sad. You could hear it in his voice. That weird mix of confusion and disappointment. This is a guy who's seen everything in Formula One, and yet here he was, basically talking to himself while the broadcast caught every second. Ferrari didn't just drop the ball, they kicked it into the harbor. You don't treat a driver like that, especially not one who's bringing you global attention, feedback, and a real chance at taking the team back to championship form. Riccardo Adami is supposed to be his race engineer, his guide, his support system on track. But on that cool-down lap, he might as well have been an unplugged radio. And the worst part, intentional or not, that silence hit louder than anything else Ferrari did all weekend. Alright, let's talk about the post-race drama, because this Monaco GP wasn't just about slow laps and narrow streets. It was also about communication, or more like the complete lack of it, between Lewis Hamilton and Ferrari. You'd think after all these years of racing, teams would figure out how to talk to their drivers, but apparently not. So after the race, Lewis did his interviews and you could tell the man was not thrilled. He said flat out that he was confused during the race. Adami, his race engineer, had told him to push. Cool, but Lewis was like, push for what? There was no clear goal, no strategy given. No info on gaps or positions, just a vague push. And pushing means using more tires, more fuel, more everything. When you don't even know who you're fighting or if there's any point, that kind of call just becomes pointless. After checking the data post-race, Lewis realized he was nowhere near the frontrunners. That push call, it cost him tire life, for absolutely nothing. So already frustrated going into the race, and now getting more confusing messages in the middle of it. Lewis mentioned that the pit stop was decent. That helped him get ahead of both Hadar and Fernando Alonso, but that was about the limit. He couldn't do anything more with what he had. He said it felt like a miserable race and you could feel the tension. He wasn't just disappointed with the result, he was clearly fed up with how Ferrari handles radio comms. And when Lewis Hamilton, one of the most experienced, composed drivers on the grid, starts airing that kind of frustration publicly, you know something's really off. Now, Ferrari team boss Fred Vasseur had his own take. When asked about the situation post-race, he admitted that things weren't great. He said Monaco was an improvement from Imola, but still nowhere near where they want to be. That's fine, we all get slow progress, but the real highlight was his explanation about the radio silence. The Fred says that at Monaco, because of the track layout, there are blind corners and high-risk zones where they avoid giving info mid-Senna. Fair enough. He said if a driver asks something in turn 1 or turn 3, they usually wait until the tunnel section before replying, to avoid distracting them. Okay, sounds like a safety-based strategy, but here's where it gets spicy. Fans quickly pointed out that during the whole radio silence moment, the broadcast showed Lewis already in the tunnel, on a cool-down lap. He wasn't battling, wasn't cornering aggressively, he was cruising. And still, no reply from Adami, not once. He tried asking if he did well, no response. Tried again, still nothing. It looked bad, like really bad. This was not a case of bad timing or safety concerns. It straight up looked like Lewis was being ghosted. And I mean ghosting a 7-time world champion on live TV. That takes a different level of cold. People are out here comparing Riccardo Adami to an ex who doesn't text back after a breakup. And the worst part is that this isn't a one-off issue. Communication problems have followed Ferrari around like a bad habit. Whether it's mixed signals, late calls, or just flat-out silence, it keeps happening. Fred did defend the team though. He said no one on the pit wall was chilling with a beer ignoring the race. They were, in his words, trying to analyze the situation before responding. But that kind of explanation doesn't sit well when you literally watch your driver asking a simple question twice and getting radio silence in return. So now the question becomes, was this intentional? Was Adami just done with Lewis for the day? Or was it genuinely a misfire in communication strategy? Some people think it was Ferrari trying to ice Hamilton out emotionally. Others believe it was just another typical Maranello mess-up. Either way, it doesn't look good. And you know what? The worst part is we still have no real closure. No apology. No team statement saying they reviewed it and it won't happen again. Just radio silence. Literally and metaphorically, it's like the whole thing got swept under the rug. And we're supposed to pretend it didn't happen. So, with the Spanish GP coming up, all eyes will be on the Ferrari radio again. Will they clean things up and give Lewis a proper race experience? Or will it be another round of cryptic messages and awkward silences? Yes, we'll find out soon enough, but one thing's for sure, you don't ignore Lewis Hamilton on live TV and expect people not to notice.